You are welcome to 321 exams. This is Islamic Religious Study. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما. The topic we are going to consider now is JAHILIYYAH. JAHILIYYAH. The topic is JAHILIYYAH. It means pre-Islamic Arabia. Pre-Islamic Arabia. What do we mean by this word Jahiliyyah? The definition of Jahiliyyah can be considered as follows. Literally, Jahiliyyah means ignorance. Ignorance. Jahiliyyah, it means ignorance. Technically speaking, it means absence of religious guidance as a result of corruption that dominates the life of a given society in the Arabian Peninsula. However, in the context of Islamic history, Jahiliyyah refers to the period before Islam. The period before Islam, before the advent of Islam, known as period of ignorance. Tribal grouping of the Arabs. During this period, there was a way through which they grouped themselves, they classified themselves into various groups, into various clans, and various tribes. During this period, they had two groups of Arabia Peninsula or Arabs among themselves. Number one, the dweller of the town and city. The first group is the dweller of the town and city. Those are the ones who engage in trade and cultivation. They engage in trade and cultivation. So the major occupation of this group of Arabs, they engaged in trade. They move from one place to another, based on the service of buying and selling. Then they also cultivate the land as agricultural system. The second group of Arabs, they call them nomad Arabs. This group of Arab, they move from one place to another. Nomad Arabs. They move from one place to another in Arabia deserts in search of pasture and water for their animals, such as horses, camels, and sheep. So from the all indications, we understand that the major occupation of the second group of Arabs prior to the coming of Islam, which is called nomad Arabs, is to also cultivate the land and to shepherd animals. So in search for food, search for grass and water for their animal, they move from one place to another. They don't have specific place where they stay. Characteristics of Jahiliyyah Arabs' way of life. These Arabs, before Islam, they had specific way of life. They had specific way of life, which we need to understand. We need to understand, in order to distance ourselves morally from this kind of behavior. And some of the behaviors that are good during this era can be deduced from their way of life. So let us look at these characteristics of Jahiliyyah. The tribal life of Jahiliyyah Arabs was characterized by the prevailing condition in the Arabian Peninsula before the advent of Islam. Two main ways of life could be identified. That is, we have two ways of life of Arabs in pre-Islamic period. Number one, the good practice. Arab had the good practices even before the coming of Islam. Number two, the bad practice. The bad practices that was exhibited during the period of Jahiliyyah. Bad practice of Jahiliyyah of Arabs can be itemized or outlined as coming. There were many bad practices which form some aspects of the tribal life of the Jahiliyyah. These involve in polytheism. Polytheism simply means worship of many gods. Worship of many gods. This is one of the bad practices of people of Arab, because this system of worship was not supported by any divine book. So they just choose to worship the god of their choice. In fact, funny enough, they were the one that carved this god by themselves. They made the god and they started to worship the god. So how possible that somebody who presents himself as helpless before the helper, it is the helpless that made the helper, and the helpless was seeking help from the helper. So it does not make any sense. It is not commonsensical. So this practice, it is very wrong. It is very bad. So the prophet embarked on secret dawah to call his close relations, and friends to Islam after the coming of Islam. So when Islam came, Islam tackled these bad practices of Arab in regarding to this polytheism. The prophet embarked on secret dawah to all his close relations and friends to Islam. At first, Allah commanded him to deliver the message to his close relations and associates in Quran 27, verse 2 and to 4. Abu Bakr, the prophet's friend, was the first to accept Islam among others. Another bad character or bad practice of Arab, prior to the advent of Islam, is inhuman treatment of women, maltreatment of women. Women suffered maltreatment, persecution from the Arabian Peninsula or Arabian society before the coming of Islam. What are the ways, or how did they treat or maltreat the women before the coming of Islam? We can look at it through the following points. Number one, they were denied inheritance by the stepsons. They were denied inheritance by the stepsons. When a husband or a man dies and leaves a woman or a wife behind, and it happened that this late man or the late husband, the deceased, left some estates, some properties that worth of distribution among the relatives. The wives or the wife, either one wife or two wives of this deceased, the late person, will be denied of his own rights, will be denied of the inheritance. She would not have any penny from the property or the estate left behind by the man. So it is high level of maltreatment, in the side of the women. So the women were denied of inheritance by the stepsons. So the eldest son of the man will be the one to inherit everything. So the woman will go empty-handed. So that is way of maltreating the women in pre-Islamic period. Another way, female daughters were buried alive. Female daughters were buried alive. In their home practice, they believed that female child was useless to the society in general and to the family in particular. So when they gave birth to a female child, that child will be buried alive because they believed that she could neither contribute anything to the family. She could neither fight in the war, in the battlefield, neither work on the farm. So they saw the female child as liability on the family. So they would be buried alive. It is a very bad treatment in the sight of women. Another way through which they maltreat or they, show a treatment towards the women, they were made, subservient to men. A man can marry as many wives as possible. He could marry as many wives as possible, and he could divorce them at any point in time based on his own personal choice. And funny enough, when a woman is being divorced, she may not get husband again, even if that woman is still very, very young. So it was a very bad way of maltreating the women during the Jahiliyyah period. Social corruption. Another way through which this period is being called or is tagged with period of ignorance is because of social corruption. Social corruption is another bad practice of Arab or Arabia society before the coming of Islam. Jahiliyyah Arabs indulge in alcoholism. They drink alcoholism endlessly, beyond the common sense. They drank it in such a way it affects their mental and their emotional reasoning. So they also involve in adultery. They involve in adultery, that is the external sexual relation. External sexual relation. So they indulge in this practice extremely. Then they also indulge in gambling. Gambling, it is a game of chance. Two persons will be involved in the game, and they will pledge that whoever wins the game will go with the money contributed by the two parties. So it is a very, very bad practice during this period. Okay, another way or another bad practice of Arab is warfare. Warfare. War was common in Arabia society before the coming of Islam. This war, Jahiliyyah Arabs enjoyed wasteful destruction through wars. They would just embark on war based on unnecessary reasons. They plunder communities and enslaved people. So this one made the Arabia Peninsula or Arabia society to be ungovernable and to be conducive for people to live. Another bad practice of Arab is tribalism. Tribalism is another system, adopted by Arab as their way of life, and it was very, very bad. Okay, Jahiliyyah Arabs were great tribalists. They considered their tribe fit before anything. That is, they placed their tribe above any interest. Okay, and regarded the support of a tribal man a supreme service, even if he was a culprit. That is, when they were ready to support their tribal person, even if the person was wrong. So other bad practices of the Jahiliyyah Arabs were the perpetration of injustice. They indulge in perpetration of injustice. They will never allow the justice to showcase. They will never allow the justice to be making used when come to judgment. Maltreatment of orphans. Another thing is maltreatment of orphans. They used to maltreat orphans, and they deny them of their rightful possession of the property. Then they also involve in cheating of others. They involve in cheating of others. So these are the bad practices of Arabs before the advent of Islam. Good practices of the Jahiliyyah Arabs. As we said, there are two classes or categories of the practices of Arab. One category is bad, as they were discussed earlier. Then the other category is also good, so which we are going to mention some of these good practices of Arab. Good practices of Arab. Okay. There were also good practices among the Jahiliyyah Arabs. These include, number one, we have courage. Courage. It is part of the attributes of Arabs in Jahiliyyah period, that is in pre-Islamic period, that they exhibited courage. Courage is a good practice. Courage is a good attribute. Courage is a good characteristic in a human being. So they possessed this quality. They were courageous people. Arabs were courageous people. They protected the image of their tribes on the battlefield. Another good practice of Arabs before the coming of Islam is hospitality. Arabs were hospitable. When they had visitor, they received the visitor with first-class treatment. In fact, it was practice of Arabs that Arab will cook food and kept in case if the visitor will come and visit him or visit them. To the extent, some of them, after they have cooked the food, they will carry a particular light and climb the hill or the rock. They will place the fire on top of the rock. It is an indication that that person wants to host visitors. So whoever is coming from any angle of that region, the moment you set your eyes on the lights on the rock, you know that somebody is waiting to host you as a visitor. You go there, the person will take you home and will give you first class treatment. I wish you the best, and I wish you excellent performance and best results. May Almighty Allah crown our efforts. So till we meet in another topic, this one will bring us to the end of this topic. May Almighty Allah see us through. We shall meet in another topic. Masalam.